back to another episode of the Beyond Sport podcast, the podcast that talks about sport, careers, mental health, and everything in between. As usual, you have myself, Craig Collins, and Nathan Foley as our regular host. Today we have got a standing guest host in Will Biggs, another fellow tutor. We have our host from the students today, which is Adam Morrison, and it gives me a delightful pleasure to welcome along to the podcast is Cedric Anselin. Welcome along.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. Now, some of you might know Cedric, some of you might not. I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background. So Cedric started his career as a professional footballer over in France with Bordeaux, going through the youth system into the first team, where he made an appearance in the UEFA Cup final, playing along the sides of the likes of Zinedine Zidane, before heading over on loan to Norwich City, where he completed a move later on to sign for the Canaries, before having a brief spell up in Scotland, before dropping into non-league and into a bit of management as well. So, Cedric, I want to take you back then, basically back to when you kind of started out at Bordeaux. And what was it like kind of making your professional debut for the club that you played for as a young person?
Well, firstly, it was I was not expected to sort of join the first team at the age I was 17. Obviously, it was, for young boys, you always have trying to take your luck and grab it and trying to make the most of it. I was lucky that obviously at the time in Bordeaux, the first team had a lot of injuries at that time, and the first team manager was looking for freshen up and see some of the players in the reserve. And lucky enough, I was very high regarded by the reserve manager, and it was a winter break, obviously in France. Got a phone call from the director of sports at Bordeaux and said to me, "For Monday, you're joining the first team on the pre-season winter." So because the first team was not too far away from where my parents was living, so actually it was easy for me to join the squad and train. And obviously we played a few friendlies and did very well. And then obviously I make my debut as a left back. Quite a long time ago now, but obviously I did well, and I stayed in the squad until the end of the season.
Excellent.
Fantastic. That sort of brings me on to one of your experiences while you're playing at Bordeaux, and like Craig alluded to in the intro, the UEFA Cup final in '96, and playing alongside big names like Zidane. Two-part question really. One, how did you deal with sort of the mental pressures building up to the game that day? Did you feel any? And two, what was it like playing alongside players of that stature?
Obviously, I was a young boy. I didn't sort of feel any pressure at that time, at that age, in all honesty, purely because I was not expected to play. I was just in the squad. Great experience, obviously. Final UEFA Cup against Bayern Munich, but the game was in 2 legs as well at the time. So the first leg was away in Germany. I had no pressure whatsoever. Again, as I said, I didn't expect to play. I didn't expect to come into a game. I remember, all the footballers before the games, even now to this stage, they all go on the field, they all go on the pitch, they all try to look around, sort of like to take a bit of that pressure away. And I remember in the final, I actually went out to look the stadium and to look the pitch, and I was actually in my little bubble. I was actually on my own. And on the far end corner, it was Christophe Dugarry, Lizarazu, and Zidane, and he was another player. He was Dutch, Richard Witschke, was Dutch international, and they actually called me. They actually called me to come across to join them. And when I actually walked towards them, they asked me a simple question: "What you are thinking at the moment?" I'm thinking about tomorrow. I've got college. Is what I was worried about. The next morning, I had to get up. I had to get up to go to college, and that was my only worry. And it was like, again, I didn't realize where I was, the size of the game. It was no pressure at all. And I think it's because obviously the player in the squad at the time, they were very welcoming. They make me feel very settled very quickly. The manager, obviously, from the first team manager, Bordeaux at this time, he was my previous manager at reserve. So he knew everything about me. He knew how to deal with me. He knew how to speak to me. And again, I was not expected to play. So, I was 17, 18. I was quite happy to be there, but I was more worried about the next day. If I was going to be able to get up early to go to college, or what time we're going to come back home. So that, yeah, it was in my mind. That's it. It was no pressure at all.
I think as teachers, if one of my students said they might be 5 or 10 minutes late because they were playing in the European Cup final the night before, I might just let them off with that.
But to be honest, at that time I was still at the academy at Bordeaux. So
yeah,
we had the director over there who was very strict about college. You had to be on time. You had to get up. You have to go to school. And obviously, I wake up on time. I was really tired on the bus to go to school. And I remember my first lesson in the morning. I think it was history or something like that. And I remember I had a black hat, Quicksilver, and I sat at the back, and I was almost like asleep. And all honesty, I think the teacher probably saw me fell asleep, but he probably watched the game and he didn't say anything.
Can I just ask you something I picked up? Like, so you said like the director of the college and that was quite strict and stuff. Did you find, is it still something you find that having structure and routine is massively important in the wider context of life?
Well, at the time, you're 17, 18, so it was like you make it or you don't at that stage in the academy. I was not even a professional at the time when I played UEFA Cup final. I was on my last year of my contract as a youngster. But Bordeaux was very strict about education, about college, about being on time, being polite, being respectful towards the people who work at school, the other students who are not at Bordeaux Academy, because they always said, you got a badge, and the badge was the Bordeaux. And you have to respect that. And to respect that is to be on time, is to be respectful towards the teachers, is to be respectful towards the other students who probably look at you and think, wow, he's Bordeaux Academy, or look, he's got an Eagles. They're all trying to educate us about the aspect that the education is very important, because you might not be a footballer. And that was in the conversation quite a lot at Bordeaux Academy. So we had to be good at school purely because football might not happen to you. And you had to, I would say, have your foot on the ground and have a plan B. Unfortunately, these days, a lot of youngsters now, 16, 15, get picked up at such early. Scouts probably promise them the world, and at the 18, they don't make it, and they got nothing to come back on their feet. But I was very lucky at the time at Bordeaux Academy that we have a director that he was very, very, very good, very strict. He was a good communicator. That was the key for me.
That's fantastic.
You mentioned about being on the pitch and not really understanding the scale of the UEFA Cup final that you're involved with, and I think we can all agree when the whistle blows, sometimes everything clears our mind and all that sort of thing. But what was it like moving countries, moving as a young man, new cultures, new team? What were the sort of pressures of that like when you moved to Norwich City?
Well, when I moved to Norwich City, it was quite difficult because I didn't speak English. It was quite very, difficult at the time to communicate with my teammates, or to even book a taxi to go in a city, or to have sort of a normal life after the training. I was still very young. I had all my best friends at Bordeaux. I had a long relation with my girlfriend at the time. And suddenly you have to move abroad. You have to move to a different country, different culture. Everything is different. You don't understand nothing. The TV is all in English. So at the beginning, it was very difficult to be in one room in a hotel with a TV that is full of English, and you don't understand anything, and you can't go outside because you can't communicate, and that was quite difficult. But then when you start to play and you start to understand, and the club at the time, Norwich City, put me a translator as well, which now to these days I'm still in contact with her. She's been very helpful all them years I was at Norwich, but mainly the first 3 or 4 months I was at Norwich, she was probably the main person who helped me to integrate myself into a culture that I didn't know. And obviously, you know, I signed for 3 months, so I knew roughly after second month Norwich wanted me to sign a permanent contract, and they offered me 3.5 years, which I signed in the end. So my first thing, it was to bring my car from France to England, but my car was French. So obviously the wheels, when you drive, they're on the left-hand side. So that was a bit tricky, because when I used to go in the city to park my car in a car park, I had to get out of my car to pick up the tickets. In the end, I was trying to make a friend come with me in the city, so he was purely to pick up the tickets for me, because I had enough to get out of my car. But yeah, it is difficult. You can feel lonely, but you do something you love. You know, that was my passion, it was my dream, it was my goal to be a footballer, and I embraced the challenge. Trying to speak English very quickly. So when I was going down to the restaurants at the hotel, I used to come down with a dictionary and trying to order in English for people trying to understand my dishes and stuff like that. So again, it was difficult, but you have to make the step forward for you to settle quickly, because if I didn't settle quickly, Norwich probably never had offered me 3 years.
Some of your performances maybe did some of the talking for you, if that makes sense.
Well, exactly, because I, as I said, I couldn't really communicate very well with the gaffer because my English was very poor. So the instruction was very limited before games. But, you know, I had fun. I was enjoying my football. And as you said, you know, you do the talking on the field, and I think that was very appreciated from the managers.
Yeah. So we've got quite a lot of students who are going to be heading off to university and stuff in September, and sort of the experience of kind of might be big city life or different culture, sort of different life experience in general. What's the number one piece of advice you'd give them guys who are sort of heading off to sort of resettle themselves?
I think for me is to settle very quickly, as early as you can, trying to understand the city, trying to understand where you're going. And again, it's all about your own characters. You know, you got people that are very shy and can't sort of settle quickly, but it will take probably 3 or 4 months, and then obviously they're going to be okay. But for me, is to understand how the city is working, how the people are working, the students, university, how they're working. But again, is for you to, obviously they go to university to have a goal, to achieve something later on at the end of it. And I think for me is to keep their eyes on the trophy all the time, every day. Of course, you're going to face challenges and obstacles, but for me is for you to flourish in the classes, you have to be happy where you are.
When you moved from Bordeaux to Norwich, that must have been tough to, you know, settle into a new place, especially into another country. But something that I might have to do after I've ended my course at Doncaster Sports College will be going to another university, and just other things that you might recommend to help settle in there.
Yeah, as I said, is first probably just study at university.
Yeah.
You know, study the city as well, where you're going. I think for me that was important when I moved to Norwich. I didn't want to be too far away from the training or the city. I wanted to be surrounding myself with a lot of people because I'm a person's people. I like to be surrounded with like a life around me. You know, I was don't trying to get a flat or somewhere where you're completely outside everything and you are in your little bubble and you're on your own. Trying to sort of, as I said, you know, be somewhere where it's a bit alive around you, and you know that was the key for me. So when I signed my contract with Norwich, obviously the first 3 months I was in the hotel. When I signed for the club, I asked a flat in the city, and that for me was good because I could get out of my flat after trainings. I could go in the city. I could have, you know, mingle with life and trying to see different cultures. That's what I done. Obviously, Norwich is a nice city. It's not a town. It's a city. And I trying to discover a bit the culture of the city. So that really helped me every day. And to be fair, I had quite a lot of players at the time was living not far from me, so it was easy for me to go.
Easy to
have a
settle
coffee.
in.
To have a coffee with them or go to watch a game. Where when you watch a game, I didn't have to talk. I just watched the game in company of my teammates. You know, things like that where you can sort of have a bit. You know, you can socialize a little bit.
Yeah, kind of going on from that then, Cedric. So moving from France to Norwich is one thing, but then moving from Norwich to Scotland to go and play for Ross County, that's another complete switch around. How did that come about, and how did you feel moving from kind of England to Scotland?
Well, it was not too difficult sort of transition to move from England to Scotland because obviously there's an English speaking there. The issue I had is obviously living in a city and then you move into a village, because I was playing for Ross County, but Ross County's ground is in a little village called Dingwall, and I was living in a B&B, and that was very difficult. The weather was freezing, and I was far away from everything. So to go from Dingwall to Inverness is probably about half an hour, 40 minutes in a bus. It was not so much live in Dingwall. But again, I was doing something I loved. I was training, and again, my English was much, much better. I could communicate a lot better. I had my teammates, which lucky enough, at Ross County, I had a French player there. So that for me was quite easy to communicate with him and be together. So we spent a lot of time together. And obviously, he had his car, so he was driving me around. But yeah, no, it was not as difficult from moving from France to England.
Yeah, so sort of like as a footballer, you come under the public eye quite a lot, bringing different levels of pressure and stuff. How do you deal with that kind of pressure of sort of knowing, like, even if it's away from the media, fans of the club and that are going to be constantly watching you, observing you, like, talking about your performances?
Yeah, well, it was quite very difficult because obviously I from Bordeaux, I came through the academy, so I was not a big player. I was just a player who just come out of the academy and sign my contract. You know, the thing is, you had a lot bigger players in a squad like Zidane, Dugarry, Lizarazu, and then the year after you had Wiltord and so on and so on. So I've never really been bothered too much with the media because I was still the young boy from the academy. So they didn't really want to do like interviews with me or stuff like that. The problem is when I moved from Bordeaux to Norwich with the back of playing a UEFA Cup final, back of winning the French league in France, being a French international, and suddenly your statue completely changed. So the media wanted to speak to me quite a lot because it was a big thing. I was the only first French player who signed for the football club at the time. So it was quite a big thing. So I was like in high demand of interviews, but because my English was not very good, I didn't want to talk. And again, as I mentioned earlier about doing the talking on the football field. So they obviously realized that I was a decent player, and they make the article that way. The thing what I was not expected is when I had so many injuries and I was not playing, that is where the pressure started. Because in France, I would say you got two players in one position. So you are in competition with your teammates. When I moved to England, because the clubs in England, they got a lot bigger budget that, clubs in France. So in my position, we can have 4 players. So if I was injured, I would come back to the 4th, and it would be difficult for me to come back in the team. And that I found very, very hard. And the media obviously starting to question why I was always injured, why I'm not playing. Because Norwich bought me. They didn't have a lot of money at the time. And at that time it was quite a big fee, what I've heard. So it was a lot of question marks about me, and I didn't know how to answer. I didn't know how to conduct myself over that. It was quite difficult, very difficult.
Cedric, do you feel that was kind of where you first started struggling with your mental health? Was around that time being injured and kind of the pressure on you? Yeah,
of course. I think that was probably one of the first step where the mental health starting to creep in terms of your mind, because when you are injured, and let me forget, I was still very young boy. I was 9, 20, 21, been in the different countries. It's a long time ago. It was not many foreign players used to leave and sign for a club abroad. And I got injured, and in football, when you got injured, is you're on your own. You got your teammates go outside and train and sort of like they're together. You're not with them. You are inside with the physio, and then you're in a gym on your own, and then the team travel away and you stay at home, and you have to come to do your physio when the team are on a day off. And it was very difficult for me to sort of be part of something. I always worked really hard to be where I was in terms of my dream, and I reached my dream, but I was not expected that sort of that pressure that was behind doors. Do you know where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Because when you play, you don't think about getting injured. And in England, when you get injured, it's easy to put you on the side, and then you got the other 3 in front of you. And I find very hard. And I remember I got injured, and it went on and on and on. And I remember going to see the gaffer, and I think at the time was Bruce Rioch. And I said, look, can you let me go back home for a few days? I just need to go home. So I went back home and see my mate at Bordeaux, and just being around people. I felt loved, because I felt like I was not part of anything in Norwich at the time. I was not playing. People was questioning me why I was not playing. I was going in the city, and people said, "Were you not playing?" I'm injured.
Yeah, that links to something I was going to ask you, and mention about how injuries affected you, and with a lot of people, it can be different things which throws them off course. You mentioned about going and seeing family and stuff like that. Is there any other tips which you would say that you think are beneficial to sort of getting back on track, whether that be recovering from injury, whether it be sort of building your confidence back up and all those sort of things? What else would you sort of recommend to help you get to where you want to be physically and mentally?
Well, for me, mentally, it was going to see my family. That was, I couldn't go anymore to the training ground. I couldn't face the walls and the physio. And I was injured for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, a month, and every day is the same. And then when you see the first team training in the morning, and then you go off after lunch, and you stay there all day. I'm not saying, I'm not complaining, because it's a beautiful job to have. But when you are feeling lonely and you are craving a bit love from your family, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to knock on the gaffer's door, and I'm going to ask to have two or 3 days to go home, just to lift me up a little bit and come back a bit more stronger and more focused on what I need to do to come back to play. Lucky enough, he accepted and understand the situation, which done the world good to me. And I come back after 3 or 4 days as a different person. And that, for me, that was the key. You know, you got so many young players in the academy, in different academies around the UK. Some of them, they are not very from the county. A lot of kids come outside the county, and if you're injured, sometimes the young kids ask for a week to go away, and the club say yes, and that's important for your well-being. And I think that is more. I would say it's more clubs understand that now, that, you know, the players need to go away. They need to recharge. They need to be surrounding with love and family. That before it was very difficult.
Yeah, it links to the sort of current situation that everyone's finding themselves in as well. Not seeing friends, not seeing family, not having that time to recharge, like you say. And yeah, I think obviously, hopefully everything is going to return to some sort of normal soon. But I think everybody definitely feels that benefits from seeing friends, seeing families, and interacting with others. And
yeah,
deal with it.
I think it's important. I think family is important for any sort of situation you're going through in life. You know, obviously at the minute it's been difficult for the last 12 months, but we got the social media. You know, we got a technology now. We can speak, you know, like we do now on a Zoom. You can have, you know, conversation with your parents on a Zoom. Yeah, you can't see them physically, but you can have a conversation. At my time, when I was in Norwich City, none of that was available. You know, none of that was available. You didn't have, you know, a contract on your mobile phone that it was easy for you to call in France, because at the time was none of it. So when I was calling to France, it used to call me an absolute fortune, and things like that. So as I said, I was in need to see my parents physically and my friends physically, and speak my language, and again, be surrounding with love. I'm not saying I was not surrounding with love at Norwich, but because the game goes so quickly, you know, everything moves so quickly, and if you're not part of that train going forward, you've been left behind. And I was feeling that I was being left behind, you know, and I needed some change, and the change was having 3 or 4 days away.
Excellent.
Yeah, that ties in with my question, Cedric. I just wanted to ask you, how important do you think it was to encourage people to talk about mental health, especially males as well?
It's so important. It's so important. So important to educate yourself as well. You know, it is a big stigma. Lucky enough, the past 5-10 years maybe now, more people are talking about. It's still difficult for people to talk about it, but they need to find the strength. They need to find, you know, for me at the time is I couldn't go and knock on the gaffer's door, because at the time in late 90s was not very positive things to say or to speak about. Now it's more acceptable. Clubs are more prepared and aware of the well-being of the players. But again, is for me, when I look back what I've achieved in the last 4 years, first and foremost is to accept something was not right with me. Secondly is to educate yourself. Thirdly is to be able to communicate about your issue. But also is you need to feel comfortable with the person that you're going to open your heart, your mind and your heart. You know, sometimes it won't be your best mate, Adam. Sometimes it will be someone completely different in your social network, but you feel comfortable with that person. And that's what I do is you know, with what happened to me, I thought my best mate would be there, but they didn't. They didn't. But I don't blame them. You know, again, it's in education. They didn't understand about mental health. They don't understand the well-being. It's like me. I don't understand politics, and I'm not trying to judge because I don't have a clue. You know, and there's a lot of people who said, "Oh, yeah, it's for crazy people," but because then people are not educated. So we need to educate ourselves and the people around us about the mental health, about the well-being. It's in education.
Yeah.
That sort of ties into my next question. Obviously, like as your life's gone on and you've got older, you've sort of understood the importance of education around mental health. But if you could go back and give your younger self any form of advice, what advice would that be?
For me, if I could come back when I was 16, it was probably to be a better communicator, because I was not a good communicator. I thought I was invincible. I thought everyone, you know, I'm a footballer. I felt like, you know, we're above everybody. We're above the laws. We're above everything, but we're not. We're just human beings like everybody else. So, you know, is having a dream. Have a dream at 16 is important. What you want to achieve, and do the hard work behind it. That for me is beyond everything. Don't rely on other people to your left or to your right. You know, we're all born, and the first thing we do when we're born is we're trying to walk forward. We make a step forward. I never see a baby doing a step backwards. So for me, is looking life forward, have goals, and trying to achieve goals, your targets. Never keep your eyes away from your trophy. You will face obstacles, you will go left and right, but everyone is not built on the same pathway.
I think we ask that question on to every guest we have on the podcast, and I think the way that answer has been deconstructed and your take on it has just given a real sense of motivation, inspiration, and it's something that I think as teachers we can all relate to as we try to get better every day. But for our 16 to 18-year-old students to hear that,
yeah, no, definitely,
and the importance of working towards a goal, it's huge.
The goals, it doesn't have to be a goal for life. It doesn't be a 10 years goals. The goals can be one day. It can be the next day. You know, every day we should have little goals and achieve them little goals. It's little things, it's the simplicity of life that we take for granted. You know, I always said, yesterday is dead. Tomorrow, don't know. Live in the present, achieve what you need to achieve today. Is important, and what you achieve today will help you to achieve what is tomorrow.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that's fascinating. It sort of ties in nicely with sort of what you're doing now and the sort of things that you're working on in your goals at the moment. What have you got sort of on at the moment?
I'm also a tutor, like Greg. I run a similar program with BTEC level 3. For me, is my goals every day is to educate myself about the mind. Mind is fascinating. It fascinates me. You know, I try to read a lot more. I try to understand a lot more. I try to not take things that I can't control. So my goals is to be, first and foremost, is to be the best dad I can be for my kids. And the way I conduct myself on a daily basis for the last 4 years, that give my kids an education.
I think that kind of just ties in a little bit in terms of speeding forward now into that kind of like this lockdown. I think Adam's got a question about
yeah. I just wanted to say a lot of focus has gone into keeping physically fit during lockdown, but how have you been keeping mentally fit during lockdown, Cedric?
Well, your mind is your computer. So how I keep mentally fit? I go running every day.
Yeah.
I go running every day. I eat and eat really healthy. I've got a very good diet. I read a lot of books. I engage with friends. I engage with people on social media and make sure they're all right. Because what is the best feeling ever is when you communicate with someone and you can help that person. That is you can't describe that feeling, that happiness.
Yeah.
When you can help someone. So mentally, I'm quite strong because I run every day. I just went for a 10K run this morning. I done a 10K run yesterday. I'm going to do a 10K run. So I try to run every single day, apart Saturday and Sunday where I spend time with my kids. But how I get strong mentally is being outside, is running, is not running to beat a personal best, is running, and that make me feel privileged that I can actually go outside and run and observe and appreciate the surrounding where I am, the nature, the world life, the field, the horse. You know, for me, that make my mind strong.
Just kind of to round off, kind of Cedric, obviously representing Norwich, it wouldn't be uncool for me to mention that Will is a big Ipswich fan, and I know you played in the derby between Norwich and Ipswich. That must have been some sort of feeling playing in that kind of game, and tell us a little bit about
that. Yeah. Obviously, one of my first games for Norwich City was against Ipswich Town. Obviously, Ipswich had a fantastic team at that time. I think they had Matt Holland, they had Richard White in goal, they had Will Neese, they had they have a very good, they had an unbelievable team. And Montbray as well at the back.
David Johnson, all the boys.
Yeah, they have a Dutch player on the left wing.
Roycer.
Yeah, and up front they had Blake, Johnson.
David Johnson, yeah, Jamaican.
He scored a lot of goals, and my first game again was them, and I think we played at Carroll Road and we drew 0-0, and I had to mark Matt Holland in midfield, and he was a good player. He was a great player, and again, everyone was talking to me about the derby, the East Anglia derby. When I moved in, it's a derby that you can't lose, and things like that. But I play in France and I play against Marseille, so it was very electric, them derby. So when I come to East Anglia, it was a good derby, but it was not what I've seen in France. But again, as I said, it's for the point of view of the fans. That is what they talk about all the time. Is this the first thing they look on the calendar? Obviously. Sorry to tell you, Will, but obviously Norwich are now in the Ipswich are now in the championship, so I can't really look the calendars and the games. But it was great. It was great to be part of it. Again, we didn't lose against Ipswich for many years, and the fans love that. It's a bit of a banter, but that's what the fans love. But as a player, it's just a game like another, and you get reminded on a Monday, this weekend you go derby and can't lose a derby.
Absolutely. And just a massive kind of thank you for reliving your moments with us, talking about mental health, giving some absolutely amazing advice for our kind of students, looking forward to whatever they may progress on to. So just a massive thank you from myself, all my fellow hosts, Adam and the college as well. Cedric, on and taking your time.
Thank you, Cedric.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Keep safe. Stay safe.
Problem. Thank you, Cedric.
Yeah, you too.
And Adam, achieve what you want to achieve in life.
Okay, all right. Cheers.